Staying with the same book, the 10 biggest business mistakes. Number 5, the fifth mistake is the wrong team. What do you mean, and how does it manifest?
Well, it's anybody who's done any human resource type work, and it's the old story: A players hire A players, and B players hire C players. And I think as people grow their business, they have a very specific sort of person in mind, and they start as they get bigger and they get less involved in the hiring process. Suddenly they don't have A players around anymore, and they're surrounded by C players. And you think, how did this happen? But it naturally happens. And so you got to be very vigilant about it. And these days, back to your opening comment about people, there's so few people. And I tell clients now, you should just continuously recruit. Just continuously recruit. And even if you, like we do it, maybe if I don't need somebody, Dan who does the recruiting, hey, I've got somebody for you to talk to. And it's like, I know you don't need that person today, but would you meet with them? And at the end of the meeting, I might say, hey, we don't have a need for you right now, but who's to say? So if you don't mind, if it'd be okay with you, can we stay in touch? And they say, yeah, of course. So I think that's just part of the dynamic that people are just, it's going to get harder and harder to do that. And the other thing that I believe is, I call it the Pete Rose syndrome. And, Pete was a great baseball player and probably did more with less talent than anybody in history. And he would say that in his book. He said that. And he, in his heart of hearts, believed he could turn every player into Pete Rose. And I think a lot of highly driven entrepreneurs think, well, I'm nothing special, so I can turn anybody into me with just a few short lessons. And so I had a client that had been an HR person at a bank, and actually he was sort of developed the whole idea of peak time staffing for banks and sold that all over the country. And we were just talking about people, and he said, if a person's personality is true north, he said, maybe you can get northeast or northwest, but you're never going to get east-west, and you absolutely will never get south. So if that's about the band, you can change, is right in there. And if a person's, if what you want him to do is outside that band, it's never going to happen. And it takes entrepreneurs a long time to think that the sheer force of their will won't change people, but it's not going to.
What advice would you have for someone who needs to hire someone who is more talented than themselves?
Great, you should, and I think it's hard for people, particularly entrepreneurs. I think I believed when I was first in business that I had to be careful about overtraining somebody, because I'd be training my next competitor. But after 3 or 4 years, I thought, well, if these people wanted to be on their own, they'd already be on their own. So don't be afraid to hire really smart people and overtrain them, because in fact, it has never happened. So, I pride myself in hiring people that are smarter than me. It's a pretty low bar anyway, so.